30 April 1945. Berlin is burning. The Reich Chancellery shudders beneath Soviet artillery that has been pounding the German capital without pause for days. Deep underground, in a damp concrete bunker barely 12 meters below the ruined streets, a man who once commanded the fate of millions sits in a chair. His left hand trembles uncontrollably. His uniform is stained. His eyes are glassy with the particular emptiness of a man who knows it is over. At approximately 3:30 in the afternoon, 2 shots are fired. Eva Braun, his new wife of less than 40 hours, lies dead beside him. Cyanide. And then silence. The curtain, they say, falls on the most destructive career in modern history. But here is what should unsettle you. The body is never conclusively identified by Western authorities. The Soviet Union, which recovers the remains, buries the evidence for decades. Witness accounts contradict one another in critical details. And within months of that afternoon in the bunker, credible intelligence reports begin to surface from Argentina, Spain, and Switzerland. Reports of a man matching Hitler's description, moving quietly through a world still too exhausted to look carefully. The question that has haunted historians, intelligence agencies, and a not insignificant portion of the global population ever since is not merely academic. Did Adolf Hitler die on 30 April 1945, or did the most wanted man in history simply walk away? The answer, as it turns out, is both simpler and more complicated than most people realize, and it begins with understanding precisely how chaotic, confused, and deliberately obscured those final days in Berlin truly were. By late April 1945, the Nazi state had effectively ceased to function as a coherent organization. The SS was burning documents. Senior officials were fleeing west to surrender to American rather than Soviet forces. Communication between what remained of German command had broken down entirely. In this environment, the idea of staging a death, or at least of ensuring maximum confusion surrounding one, was not merely possible, it was operationally straightforward for anyone with the resources and the loyalty of a small inner circle. The Soviet Union reached the bunker first. Red Army soldiers and NKVD officers combed the site in the days following Hitler's reported death. What they found was a charred corpse, partially burned in the Reich Chancellery garden, as per the instructions Hitler himself had reportedly given. The Soviets claimed to have identified the remains through dental records, matching them to the work of Hitler's dentist, Hugo Blaschka. For decades, this constituted the primary forensic evidence. The problem is that those dental records were obtained from a dental assistant working from memory, under interrogation, in Soviet custody. The original records themselves have never been definitively produced to independent scrutiny. If you are finding this interesting, a quick subscribe helps more than you know. The skull fragment the Soviets preserved and occasionally displayed as physical proof of Hitler's death became one of history's most contested relics. In 2018, a French forensic team was granted access to study the skull fragment. Their conclusion was remarkable. The skull did not belong to Hitler. The bone structure and the pith were consistent with a woman under 40 years of age. The Soviet Union had, knowingly or otherwise, been presenting the wrong skull for over 70 years. This does not prove Hitler escaped. It does prove that the forensic case for his death was far weaker than official history suggested. The escape theories are not fringe speculation invented after the fact. They were the subject of serious Allied intelligence concern almost immediately. The ODSS network, an organization allegedly established to help SS officers flee Europe through so-called rat lines, is documented in declassified OSS and CIA files. These escape routes ran through Spain under Franco, through Vatican-adjacent organizations in Rome, and ultimately to South America, particularly Argentina under Perón, who was openly sympathetic to Nazi fugitives. Thousands of former SS men did escape this way. That is historical fact, not conspiracy. The FBI opened a file on Hitler's possible survival in 1945 and did not formally close it until 1947. That file, declassified under the Freedom of Information Act, contains multiple reports from agents in Argentina describing a man matching Hitler's description living in the Patagonian interior. The reports are unverified, but they were considered credible enough to investigate. The historical consensus, reached through careful examination of the available evidence, is that Hitler almost certainly did die in the bunker on 30 April 1945. The eyewitness testimony of bunker staff, however partial and sometimes inconsistent, generally corroborates the official account. His known health, Parkinson's disease, possible poisoning from medication, extreme psychological deterioration makes the logistics of a successful escape and a decades-long concealment extraordinarily unlikely. The forensic work done on the surviving teeth and lower jaw fragments by a team from the University of Bordeaux in 2018 did match Hitler's known dental records from multiple independent sources. But the story of why so many people have found the escape narrative compelling is itself revealing. It speaks to the Soviet Union's deliberate obfuscation of the evidence for Cold War political reasons. It speaks to the genuine success of Nazi rat lines inspiriting war criminals to safety. And it speaks to a deeply human difficulty in accepting that a man responsible for the deaths of tens of millions simply sat in a chair one April afternoon and shot himself. No dramatic capture, no trial, no reckoning. History rarely provides the endings it owes us. Return then to that bunker, to the trembling hand, the stained uniform, the concrete walls sweating with the concussion of Soviet guns overhead. Whatever happened in those final moments, and the weight of evidence says we know what happened, the world that emerged from the rubble of Berlin in May 1945 had to be rebuilt without the certainty it craved. The monster had no final scene in chains. He had only silence and a curtain of smoke and decades of justified doubt. The truth, as best we can reconstruct it, is that Hitler died exactly where and when the official record says he did. But the failure to prove it beyond all doubt is itself a testament to how completely the Third Reich, even in its death throes, managed to obscure the truth. In the end, the escape was not physical, it was historical, and it took nearly 80 years to finally close the door.